Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am Representative Cedric Frazier. Thank you all for being here today to hear from community members, business owners that have been impacted, which is the reason why we're here. I represent District 43A, which is cities of Crystal and New Hope. We're here to talk about what we all know has happened this year. We've had many of our small businesses impacted by the Metro Surge events and activities that took place within our state. And even though those activities have wound down, we know the damage and the harm had already been done. And now the Senate has already passed an economic relief package of $100 million. It is now incumbent on us in the House, the other body, to make sure we do the same here. Now, we only have a few days left in this legislative session. But what I always tell folks, nothing is over. Opportunity is still here. Hope is always eternal until that last gavel goes down. And so we still have some time to get this done for our small businesses. And we know that right now, as a result of the Metro Surge and the ICE activities here, there's been $600 million in lost business revenue in Minneapolis and St. Paul alone, an estimated $240 million impact in wages. That's just in Minneapolis and St. Paul. But we know that this was a statewide issue and a statewide impact. We know that there was impacts in Wilmer, Worthington, Fergus Falls, Grand Rapids, St. Cloud, and Rochester, where Minnesota immigrants are integral to the main streets and local economies there. It is imperative that we get this business relief package done, because what we do not want to happen is to have those small businesses that are the very backbones of many of our communities close and close for good. So I am happy and proud to stand here with these business owners and these community advocates who you will hear from shortly after me. And we're going to keep fighting to make sure that we get something done for them, to take care of them. And that's what we do here in Minnesota. We take care of our neighbors. We take care of our friends. And we're going to continue to do that as legislators as well. And up next, I have my good friend and partner on this legislation, Chair John.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Shaw, State Representative, District 67B, and I represent families and small business owners who built something real in this state and who are now watching it slip away while the House Republican caucus plays politics. Let me tell you what I saw in my district after the ICE surge hit. I watched small business owners open their doors, not knowing if their employees would show up, because those employees were terrified to leave their homes. Customers stopped coming. Revenue collapsed overnight. These weren't struggling businesses, they were thriving, community-rooted enterprises that got blindsided by a federal enforcement wave that they had no power to stop. And it wasn't just in my district. From the Twin Cities to greater Minnesota, workers lost wages, owners burned through savings, and some closed permanently. The damage is real, and it is deep, and it's unfolding. Now I want to talk about what Minnesota has done, because this state has a proud tradition of stepping up when communities face economic hardship beyond their control. When Duluth flooded in 2012, Minnesota passed $168 million in disaster assistance package. When the fire devastated Madelia and Watonwan County, we sent $1.7 million in remediation grants. When walleye fishing declined on Mille Lacs Lake and businesses dried up through no fault of their own, we passed reimbursement grants. When the paper mill closed in Duluth, we put in $2 million to retrofit that plant. When COVID shut down the convention centers and movie theaters, we passed $14 million in relief. When drought crushed farmers in 2022, we sent $8.1 million. When communities lost power plants and jobs, we created an entire office and millions in grants to help them transition. And just a few weeks ago, right here, Republicans and Democrats together passed a bill to help dairy farmers access federal support, because when Minnesotans face economic hardship through no fault of their own, the state shows up. Somehow, I have to ask Speaker Demuth and the House Republicans, what is different now? The answer is this: the people asking for help look different. They speak different languages. They come from different places. And apparently, that makes this transactional. Make no mistake, Republicans are now holding the small business relief bill hostage, demanding that we weaken paid family leave protections for Minnesota workers that Minnesota workers fought hard to win. They want to pit working families against working families, and this is not a negotiation. This is cruelty dressed up as policy. Minnesota helped dairy farmers. Minnesota helped fishing towns. Minnesota helped flood victims and drought victims in mill towns and paper towns. We have never once said to them, the community who's hurting, we'll help you, but first, you have to give up something.
That's right.
The Senate has already passed the relief. The need is urgent. Every week we delay, more businesses are making irreversible decisions to close. I stand here with Unidos Minnesota, with Representative Frazier, and with every small business and worker who refuse to be used as a bargaining chip. Pass the relief, do it now, not because you got something in return, but because that's what Minnesota has always done.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos. I'm Executive Director of Unidos Minnesota. We are a statewide grassroots organization building power for Minnesota's working families to advance social, racial, and economic justice. Unidos Minnesota is at the Capitol today with hundreds of Minnesotans because across the state, small businesses and neighbors are still recovering from the fear and disruption experienced this winter due to ICE enforcement. Urban and rural businesses lost income. Workers lost wages, and families were afraid to shop, work, and move through their own communities. This led to millions in lost small business revenue in every corner of our state. In communities where Unidos is organizing, we have heard from a family-owned restaurant in Wilmar, where both parents were detained by ICE in January, forcing the restaurant to close, losing $3,000 per day, and the children to take over and run the business. The owner of a burger shop in Eden Prairie Center that, like so many other businesses, faced a sharp decline in sales and foot traffic on top of rising costs. And a family, in North Mankato, who planned to open a grocery store serving the Latino community in January and was forced to delay for months, costing them thousands of dollars in lost revenue, while they still had to pay for rent, utilities, and all of other costs. There are so many voices that cannot be here today, and more highlighted in the storybooks. So there's some storybooks here for members of press, for legislators, for anybody who is curious about the real stories of Minnesota businesses that are struggling right now, and that have a struggle for months now. I also want to thank our chief authors and champions, Representative Frazier, Representative Shong, Senator Champion, Senator Mohammed, Senator Pa, and so many others. We have only 6 days left in session, and we are very clear. Minnesotans showed a lot of courage. Minnesotans model to the country and the world what we do together in times of adversity. And it is because of that courage that all of us who are standing here will not rest until this bill gets done and until businesses find the relief that they deserve. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Senator Susan Pa, and I represent Senate District 38, which is Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, and Osseo. Operation Metro Surge didn't just target individuals. They devastated communities, as we have seen throughout the state of Minnesota. People locked their doors. They didn't feel safe to go out. Workers stopped showing up, and foot traffic disappeared. Businesses that families spent decades, some of them generations, to build, overnight closed. That wasn't bad business management. That wasn't a bad or slow quarter. This was Operation Metro Surge that wiped out personal and business savings, erased people's livelihoods, and destroy their dreams of a small business ownership that's thriving. I have looked these business owners in the eye as I have visited their businesses, their retail shops, their restaurants that were empty, and many of them in tears, saying they don't know how they're going to survive. They don't know how they're going to recover, and asking us as legislators to help and step up. $100 million in small business recovery fund is how we can help and step up. It is not a handout, as some of them, our Republican members would say. It is an investment. It is what our small businesses deserve from us. These are our businesses that anchor our neighborhoods and communities. They are the beating heart of Minnesota's economy. And we must act now. We must act with no delay, because our businesses are counting on us. So I call on to our Republican colleagues to also step up, because this also impacts their communities as well, not just ours. The time is now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Soleil Ramirez. I am the chef and owner of Krusty Restaurant and Arepa Bar Catering on Wabasha Street South in the west of St. Paul. What is happening in Minnesota, particularly the Federal Immigration Enforcement Operation known as Operation Metro Search, continues to directly impact Latino-owned businesses and immigrant communities through our state. Many people speak about this crisis in the past tense, but for our communities, it's not over. Customers have completely changed the way they go out. Families are afraid, and employees are still afraid to come to work every day. Businesses across the West Side, East Side, University Avenue, Lake Street, Midway, and many immigrant-owned corridors are continuing to experience devastating economic losses. As a Venezuelan business owner who lived through dictatorship for 30 years, I understand in my skin what fear does to communities. Fear changes behavior, fear insulates people, and fear destroys local economies, leaving a wound it's not going to close anytime soon. That is why we propose $100 million relief package being discussed today is so important. This is not about politics. This is about economic survival and stabilizations for the entire state. These crises impact workers, restaurants, storefronts, suppliers, landlords, neighborhoods, and the overall economic health of Minnesota. The city and the state may not control federal immigrations, but they can control how they respond to protect the small businesses during a crisis. This moment cannot only be about discussion, it must be about action. We need accessible relief, we need flexibility, we need urgency, and we need a long-term strategy to help rebuild trust and bring economic stability back to Minnesota. Because if we do nothing over the next 3 months, our commercial corridors in the entire state will look very different. More businesses will close, more jobs will disappear, and trust in our institutions will continue to erode. We are not asking for charity. We are not asking for charity again. This is something I want to put there very, very clear. We are asking for leadership, and we are not feeling that. Yes. We are asking for partnership, and we are asking our government to recognize that when immigrant communities suffer, Minnesota's economy suffers with them. I truly believe we are stronger together. But if we fail to support each other now, the economic and social consequences will not only become more severe in the future. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today. My name is Alex West Steinman, and I am the co-founder and CEO of The Coven. We're a co-working space designed for belonging with 6 locations in Minneapolis and St. Paul and across the Twin Cities. I'm here today as one of the many small business owners impacted by Operation Metro Surge, asking the legislature to provide relief for small businesses during this crisis. At the Coven, in addition to the general stress brought by ICE's presence in our communities, 2 of our locations experienced major incidents in January and February. Our Minneapolis location is just 2 blocks from where Alex Preddy was shot and killed by federal immigration agents, and our St. Paul location on Selby and Western experienced an ICE pursuit and crash directly outside of the building. In January alone, those 2 locations saw a 33% drop in revenue. Because of that sudden loss in revenue, we had to lay off an employee, and another staff member left to seek stability elsewhere. Our business depends on stable, recurring revenue and incremental conference room bookings, but we've lost members whose organizations have been disrupted by immigration enforcement and others who no longer feel safe traveling to our spaces. These events have had chilling effects on our staff, our members, and our neighbors. Many of the entrepreneurs and organizations who used our spaces are part of immigrant communities, and some have stopped coming altogether out of fear of encountering federal agents in our neighborhood. Our story is not unique, though. On Eat Street alone, businesses have lost more than half their staff because they were afraid to come to work. Restaurants lost up to 80% of their revenue this winter. 80%. If you thought we had a rainy day fund, it was gone in COVID. Like us, they've had to pause growth, eliminate positions, and risk their own stability to provide mutual aid for the neighborhood. Small businesses are resilient, but we are not invincible. The consequences of this ICE surge are immediate, lasting, and severe. It will take a long time to recover from the trauma of this year, but economic recovery can really start right now. We urge our lawmakers to pass relief for small businesses and protect the businesses that protected their neighbors this year. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Yusur Mahamoud, and I serve as a business advisor for Lake Street Council. And I've been a member of this community for almost 30 years. And I'm not here as an outsider looking in, but I'm here because this is my home and these are my neighbors. We don't need a reminder of what happened and that we're still living it every single day. The losses did not stop accumulating when the raids stopped making headlines. This is still happening and the damage is still unfolding in real time. But what I want you to hear today are the stories behind the numbers. The East African restaurant owners who fed this neighborhood for 2 decades. The cultural malls, both Hispanic and East African, that anchors entire blocks and employs so many people. All of them absorbing losses that they did not cause and that they did not deserve. Statewide, we are looking at over $600 million in economic damage. And on Lake Street alone, we conservatively estimate that businesses lost an average of $57,000 in revenue. And for many, it was way more significant than that. I want every lawmaker in Minnesota to sit with that number for a moment, $57,000. For a small business owner, that's not just a revenue figure. That is payroll, that is rent.
Yeah.
That's whether you open your doors or not. And what happens on Lake Street does not just stay on Lake Street. We are a mirror for every cultural corridor across Minnesota and every immigrant neighborhood, every community that built something beautiful out of very little and is now watching it be threatened. And to the community, I want to say this directly, that your presence has always mattered. And I want to say this directly as well, keep showing up for these small businesses. Keep time and please understand that presence matters, and keep showing up for these businesses, keep walking through their doors, because legislation takes time and community is immediate. And right now, these business owners need to know that they are not invisible. And here is something that should matter to every elected official, no matter where they sit politically. When small businesses fail, tax revenues shrink. Jobs disappear, and entire corridors go dark, including the rural areas. That is not a partisan issue. That is an economic reality that every Minnesota will pay for. So we are calling on our state leaders to pass meaningful relief this year, state grants and forgivable loans that work best. Because our businesses have told us countless of times that we already have enough debt. Lake Street is still standing, but we need the state of Minnesota to stand with us, and we also stand with the state of Minnesota.
Thank you. I cannot make this case more plainly and strongly than these small business owners did. Thank you. I will add what I saw during Metro Search in South Minneapolis. When I went to Caramel Mall, I saw Somali business and East African business owners, almost all of them American citizens. Sometimes second and third generation, standing around with nothing to do. A lot of shops were closed. No one in line for lunch, getting their hair done or shopping for clothes. In fact, there were more CNN reporters than customers. It was eerie and infuriating. That same silence played across Minnesota at businesses that immigrants owned and worked at or patronized. We know today that the state lost thousands of jobs in both the construction and hospitality industries. We know that our unemployment rate rose and passed the national average, and that Minnesota and the Twin Cities had the worst economic winter of any place in our country. Many of us helped in the donation or delivery for food or carpooling of children to and from school. Those neighbors who were too afraid to leave their homes were out of work, missing paychecks, and now they are months behind on their bills. The financial hit we took during those weeks is staggering. You, sir, mentioned this. $600 million lost in business and $200 lost in income just in Minneapolis and St. Paul alone. And just so far, the fallout continues to today. I don't have to tell you that. They will tell you that. The legislation that we passed in the Senate meets the needs to get this funding out the door and invest it wisely, as we have done over and over again, as Chair Shong mentioned, previous years. Minnesotans stood up for our neighbors in the face of an authoritarian government. I do not need to tell you that Lisa Damuth and House Republicans are blocking many critical bills this session. This one is the most obvious. And with that, we'll take questions.
Representative Frazier, I wonder if you could weigh in a little bit. You've been present for a lot of the leadership negotiations. I know there's a lot being discussed in there. Has the issue of responding to Operation Metro Surge in this way and others reached the level of those negotiations yet, or have those been mainly focused on other areas for now?
We have focused on many areas, mainly saving HCMC is a big issue. But this issue remains top of mind because of what it means for our state and what it means for the many folks that individuals spoke here today. We're still very aware of the harm that was done, and we will keep it top of mind as long as we're having these discussions until we gavel out.
If some sort of compromise were to come from this bill, do you think it would come from like a higher level negotiation like that, or is this kind of happening amongst committee chairs and across the aisle, that sort of thing?
I think it's a combination. I think the chairs, Chair Pinto, Chair Baker, are still having conversations, and they'll be in conference committee with Senator Champion. I think those conversations will continue, but we're also, like I said, we're keeping it top of mind at the table as well as we're negotiating things overall.
What vehicle would you have in the House for this? I mean, not know yet, but I think last week you tried to amend the ordinance and that failed, so
Yeah.
what else?
Well, I think currently, the jobs bill, workforce bill is in conference committee, so there would be an opportunity, there's an opportunity there.
I wonder if anybody could talk about what is being discussed with Republicans. I know there have been a few Republicans, at least, who have expressed maybe a more nuanced stance on this issue, some other ones. Are there positive conversations going on? Is it all, hey, we're not going to vote for this, we don't see a path forward?
No, I think there are, Chair Baker, for one, who is the chair of workforce development, has expressed the harm that was caused in his district. So I think that's a positive thing. We've heard some other members express the harm that they've seen in their district as well. So I think those things are positive. The devil's in the details in terms of how we get that figured out, but I do think there's a path for us to figure it out and get the resources out to these small businesses.
And I'll add that this morning we had a meeting with Chair Baker and Pinto and Chair Champion. And out of that meeting, we had discussed an agreement where we would do a public hearing. I think tomorrow morning, it was supposed to be scheduled for, and sounds like House leadership said no, so we won't be doing that. So it sounds like Lisa Damas does not want a public hearing on this issue.
Hot off the presses.
So how realistic are the chances of actually getting something?
What I would say is that anything's still possible, and I'm still hopeful and optimistic as long as we have several days left in this session.
If this were to pass as standalone legislation, how many Republicans would you need? I mean, I know it's a little bit complicated. There's committees you have to get things through. It's not just that one Republican vote that seems to be sort of theorized sometimes.
Yeah.
What does that path forward look like?
Well, in the House, we just need one Republican to vote with all the Democrats. We only need 68 votes.
To get the vote though, through committee and to the floor, I mean, it may be a little bit more complicated than that.
So each one, through committee, we need a majority. On the House side, we just need a majority of the members because of our shared agreement. We need a majority of the members. So if we have a Republican that votes with us to committee, that could be Chair Baker, we can move it through committee, same as on the conference committee that he's a part of. So we have a path there. And again, Chair Baker has shared that he saw and experienced firsthand what happened in his district. So we know that he understands the harm that took place for those small businesses.